close your eyes and imagine it's the 13th century. High on the northern frontier of China, the Great Wall stretches across mountains and deserts, a symbol of strength built to keep invaders out. Behind its towers and battlements lies the Ming heartland, cities, markets, scholars, and farmers, all depending on this wall for safety. Beyond it, the endless steppe, where the most fearsome warriors in history gather. The Mongols, led by ruthless Khans, ride swift horses and wield unmatched bows. In our timeline, the wall slowed them down, buying China time to defend itself. But what if it hadn't? What if the Great Wall of China failed against the Mongols? The Mongols weren't just any enemy. They were a storm on horseback, an unstoppable force that had already conquered lands from Central Asia to Persia. When they set their sights on China, the Great Wall stood as the ultimate barrier. But in this alternate timeline, the wall is no barrier at all. Maybe it's unfinished, maybe corrupt officials let weaknesses grow, or maybe the Mongols simply find ways around it. The towers fall silent, the gates swing open, and the riders pour in like a tidal wave. Within months, the mighty Wall of China, a monument meant to protect for centuries, becomes a crumbling relic. Now picture what follows. The Mongols sweep across the plains and valleys of northern China with terrifying speed. Villages burn, armies scatter, and entire cities surrender without a fight. The wall had been the heart of Chinese defense strategy. Once it collapses, there's nothing to stop the invasion. Beijing, Xi'an, Kaifeng, all the great capitals fall, one after another. Instead of holding back the Mongols for years, China is overrun in a matter of months. The empire that prided itself on order, bureaucracy, and stability is shattered. But this isn't just a Chinese disaster, it's a global earthquake. In our history, China resisted long enough that the Mongols had to spend decades consolidating power. Their rule, though brutal, eventually blended with Chinese culture. But in this alternate world, there's no time for blending. The Mongols don't adapt to China. China adapts to them. The Silk Roads, once managed by careful Chinese officials, now flow under Mongol control. Gold, silk, and porcelain pour westward, while horses and weapons pour eastward. Within years, the Mongols are not just conquerors of China. They're rulers of the richest, most advanced empire in the world. Imagine what that means. The Mongols now command Chinese gunpowder, Chinese engineers, and Chinese shipbuilders. In our history, it took centuries before gunpowder weapons spread widely to Europe. But under Mongol control, this knowledge travels faster than ever. Picture Mongol horsemen armed not only with bows, but with crude cannons and fire lances, terrifying their enemies from Hungary to India. The balance of power shifts overnight. And it doesn't stop there. China's vast population, tens of millions of farmers, artisans, and scholars, is suddenly forced to serve the Mongol Empire. With this manpower, the Mongols launch new campaigns of expansion. Japan, already threatened in our history, may finally fall under a massive Mongol fleet built with Chinese ships. Southeast Asia, India, and even the Middle East face waves of invasion backed by resources far greater than the Mongols ever had. Now look westward. In Europe, people already feared the Mongols after they burned cities and crushed armies in the 1200s. But in our history, their expansion slowed after internal struggles and the death of the Great Khan. In this alternate world, with the wealth of China behind them, nothing slows them down. Europe, divided into fragile kingdoms, is no match. Imagine Mongol cavalry storming through Poland, France, even Spain, while fleets sail from the east to pressure the Mediterranean. The dream of Christendom, the Renaissance, the Age of Discovery, all could be strangled before they ever begin. But the Mongols were not just destroyers. They were also empire builders. Their real power came from connecting worlds. If they had absorbed China quickly, the world's first true global empire might have formed centuries earlier. Trade routes stretching from the Pacific to the Atlantic could have united Eurasia under one rule: Chinese porcelain in Paris, Italian glass in Beijing, Indian spices in Moscow, all flowing under Mongol banners. Instead of waiting for Columbus to discover the Americas in 1492, Mongol Chinese fleets might have crossed the Pacific centuries earlier. Imagine a Native American tribe watching not Spanish caravels, but massive fleets flying Mongol standards arriving on their shores. History itself bends into something unrecognizable. Culture, too, changes beyond recognition. The Mongols had little written tradition of their own, but they borrowed from those they conquered. In this alternate history, Chinese scholars, instead of guiding emperors, write under Mongol Khans. Confucian philosophy is twisted into tools of conquest. Instead of temples of peace, imagine monuments of Mongol power rising over Chinese cities. Chinese language and Mongol language mix, forming strange hybrids. Even the Great Wall itself, once meant to stop the Mongols, might be rebuilt by Mongol rulers, not as defense, but as a symbol of their dominance. And what about religion? In our history, the Mongols tolerated many faiths, from Islam to Christianity to Buddhism. But with China conquered so quickly, Buddhism and Confucianism fell under Mongol rule, spreading far faster across Asia and Europe. Imagine European kings kneeling not to the Pope, but to Mongol Khans, accepting Buddhist temples in their cities. Christianity, instead of dominating Europe, could wither under Mongol influence. The spiritual map of the world transforms. Now think about technology. The Mongols themselves were not inventors, but they were the greatest sharers in history. With Chinese engineers forced into their service, inventions like compasses, printing, and gunpowder spread rapidly. Instead of waiting for the Renaissance, Europe might see an explosion of technology in the 1200s. But this wouldn't be a free Renaissance. It would be a forced one, directed by Mongol masters. Human progress speeds up, but under the iron grip of a steppe empire. Fast forward to our modern world. If the Mongols had controlled China completely and early, we might live in a very different society today. Nations like France, England, and Spain may never have risen as global powers. The Americas might have been discovered, colonized, and ruled not by Europeans, but by a Mongol-Chinese fleet. The English language might not exist as the global tongue. Instead, the languages of the steppe, or Chinese dialects, dominate. Democracy, individual freedom, and the ideals of the Enlightenment could vanish before they were even born. Humanity might live under a single empire, stretching across continents, with rulers descended from Mongol Khans. But here lies the final question. Would this world be a paradise of unity, or a prison of control? Under one empire, wars between nations might vanish, trade might flourish, and technology might spread faster. But the cost would be freedom. The Mongols ruled with fear, with absolute power, crushing anyone who resisted. If they had ruled the world, perhaps we would already have colonies on Mars, but no voice to choose our own leaders. Perhaps we would all live under a single law, but with no diversity, no individuality, no choice. The Great Wall of China was more than stone and mortar. It was a line between two worlds, the ordered empire of China and the chaotic steppe beyond. In our history, it held long enough to slow the storm. But if it had failed, the storm would have consumed everything. China, Europe, the Americas, even the modern world as we know it, all reshaped under the shadow of Mongol rule. So, what do you think? If the Great Wall of China had failed against the Mongols, would humanity today live in a golden age of progress, or under the endless rule of a single, unbreakable empire?